All right, we're ready to get started if everyone's... Okay, good evening. The hour being 6:51 on Monday, October 24th, 2022. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting. Bridget, can we have a roll call for this meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Here.
Trustee Cote?
Here.
Trustee Conroy?
Here.
Trustee Leclerc?
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Here.
And President Garvey.
Here. Thank you, Bridget. Okay, the first item we have is a discussion of case number 2205, a text amendment to Chapter 62 and 42 of the Village Code related to establishing a temporary use and event permit application. I think Emily's going to present to us. This was previously on the Committee of the Whole. We asked for some additional time to go over this, and so we have the committee item memo as we usually do, but Emily's going to make a brief presentation.
All right, this is the introductory slide. If you go to the next slide. All right, this is really just a text amendment to do a couple different things. First, provide a more consistent and predictable process for hosting these events. These type of events are ones that we want to encourage. They're community events, and we want to make it more predictable for the folks organizing and applying for these events to move through that process. It will also expedite the interdepartmental review. So part of this process change is to make it very clear who's responsible for what for the internal review, and then just cleaning up the village code. So as President Garvey said, we began this research project earlier this year. In the summer, we brought it before the Committee of the Whole in July. And we had 2 very productive meetings with the Planning and Zoning Commission. That we got a lot of feedback from them, very thorough review as usual through the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we have changed the originally proposed text amendments based on the feedback we got from the Planning and Zoning Commission. These are a couple highlights of the Planning and Zoning Commission feedback. First bullet point just speaks to why limit this. So eventually we will have applications that could be events for every Saturday. Now that may not be appropriate, and that will be something that staff will work with the applicant on. But if it is appropriate, if it is a community event that would happen every Saturday in the summer, then we don't want to unnecessarily limit that. We cleaned up the proposed process by removing the bond requirement and including a hold harmless for anything done in the right-of-way. And we made it very clear which events or properties would be exempt from this process, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then because we know a lot of nonprofit and community organizations apply for these type of events, the Planning and Zoning Commission suggested that we reduce the fee from $50 to $25 for this type of permit. These permits do not make up staff time to review it, so that recommendation was moved forward. So this is a long list of all of the exemptions that this list is included in the actual text. So this makes it very clear that anything done within the park system has a separate permit process. The block parties that is organized, that they are organized through the Public Works Department has a separate process. Anything happening on government buildings, so that would include the schools and the library. Those events that happen quite regularly, those are exempt from this process. Unless they're happening in the right-of-way, we don't need to regulate those events. Private events done within your own home, those are not something that we're looking to regulate at all. And then garage sales and food trucks are addressed elsewhere in the code. This just speaks to the process, cleaning it up, making it very clear who's doing what. The village planner will review the initial application, and they will be the ones to coordinate with all of the other departments for their review. These are all the sections of the code we're going to clean up and consolidate. This is an example of the proposed application. We actually got a lot of good feedback from the public to improve this application. And that's just an example of the hold harmless, which is something that we currently use for outdoor cafes and other items within the right-of-way. And that's all I have. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Do any board members have questions or comments?
So does this pertain to private property? If a business wants to have, a concert on their property or something like that that is open to the public, so it's not a private event, but it's on private property?
Yes, this would be something that, one example that the code outlines currently is a carnival. If something that is completely outside of the normal business and normal operations, this permit process would be a way to review it and to allow it if appropriate. So yes.
But in terms of a concert, but not live music within their own,
No.
just wanted to clarify that. Other questions? Go
I had
ahead.
some questions about kind of how it will be displayed on the website. We're kind of, communicated to folks. So there's a lot of pieces in the code, and not everyone's going to maybe read through all of the code language, but there's some really specific things in there that would be helpful for the applicant, attached to the application or filling out the application that's not on it. So things like, what time can you have music until? Or that the application fee is $25, and just some of the items that they need to have insurance.
Great question. I know the Committee of the Whole, when we brought this up previously, suggested a simple one-page flyer to help break down that communication. We definitely still plan on having that for communication purposes, but I want to add that a lot of these organizations that typically have events that this would pertain to, we reach out to them before we even went to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So hopefully word is spreading, and we gathered a lot of that input already, but absolutely there should be a very simple, concise flyer to explain the bulk of this.
Cool, thank you. And then with that, maybe an example of what a site plan, like what you might want
Okay.
from a site plan, just what would be included, just so you don't have to go back and forth too many times with someone about what you mean. I think an example would be helpful. And then I feel like I saw at the end that it said $50 still. Is it changed to 25?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the board?
The only other questions what I always get is about surrounding alcohol sales and what's needed, and if that could be tied into that same area, so it's someone planning an event kind of has everything there that they could click through to get information on that and what the requirements are.
Yes, that's why we are requiring that time in between the actual event and time of the application, so we can catch if a liquor license is required, and then walk them through that process. That's one of the boxes on the application.
Yeah, okay.
And you started this whole thing talking about the predictability, but it's both for staff and the organizations, because I know a lot of these are, as you indicated, these are events that we want to have, and we're trying to make it easier, and often they're organizations that are run by volunteers or people who are involved in their business and doing another event, so we're trying to make the predictability, and I appreciate the proactive nature of reaching out to the organizations ahead of time, the events that we know that are coming. I mean, of course, we'll always be open to new events and new ideas, but the step of, reaching out to them ahead of time, letting them know the timetable, we've tried to, rush and accommodate some of these things called special board meetings in the past to make some of these things happen, but a lot of these events, as we know, take place on an annual basis around the usual time of year, so I know you've kind of created a calendar where you're, thinking, okay, this is coming up, let's reach out to them. And I just think this whole process of making it more convenient and predictable, and with the frequently asked questions and easy use formats is something I think is very, very helpful.
Can I ask one more question about the insurance piece? So if it was a volunteer group that didn't have a 501c3 or wasn't a formal organization yet, what would the response be to that type of group looking to have an event? Would they need a sponsor or another organization to partner with?
That could be an option. I believe other folks that have applied for events in this situation have actually used their homeowner's insurance to ensure the event. But a sponsor or partnership is also a good idea.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we could put these proposed changes up for the first meeting in November. And thank you to the commission for all the work and the meetings on this and the vetting process and staff, so. Okay, our next item is a recommendation regarding a new village website service provider. Stevie?
Good evening, Board and President Garvey. With us here today is a revised representative. I am going to provide just some initial background for why this recommendation is present with us here today. And then Thomas Jean of Revise is going to get into some further detail on that website service as a provider. So the Village Manager's Office established an Information Technology Strategic Planning Committee. This was done in 2021 and completed at that time, and comprised of representatives from each department within the village to contribute to the development of an IT strategic plan, which was not in place at the time of that committee formation. The primary purpose of the strategic plan was to set a direction and priority for the village's IT needs and infrastructure based on the operational priorities within each department and the village's overall goals and objectives. The strategic plan lays the foundation for IT project needs by department, and it is to be considered for each budget year. It is inclusive of both hardware and software replacements, operational tools, and cybersecurity considerations. The plan provides context and prioritization for individual projects, which helps ensure the long-term security and quality of the village's IT infrastructure. Since the implementation of this plan in 2021, the village has been able to accomplish more than several IT initiatives across departments, which has already contributed to better operational efficiencies. And some initiatives include police department body cameras, electronic security door system, records retention software, televised board meetings, as well as other initiatives. The recommendation and website service provider before us today has been budgeted for 2022 and was identified as a weakness across all departments within the IT Strategic Plan Committee members, deficiency being the current village website as it is. The current website for the village is difficult to navigate. A new site that is standardized and is easier for residents to quickly access the information most needed is important. The website is the face for the village for both residents and neighboring communities, and having information easily accessible for visitors in the area will benefit our community. The benefits of having a more modern, up-to-date, and streamlined website will vastly improve the village's ability to communicate with the public, increase transparency, and provide services more impactfully. As the village increases its use of digital tools such as social media, our GIS system, our new work order management system, eSuite modules for New World systems, and RegTrack, among others, having a website that is more easily navigated, edited, updated, and accessible will be crucial to improving services. The process of seeking a new website vendor began with assembling representatives from all village departments that would contribute valuable input into the steps of seeking proposals and demonstrations by qualified vendors. The team reviewed the proposal and demonstrations by 4 different vendors: Civic Plus, Civic Live, Granicus, and Revise. Team members had the opportunity to ask specific questions related to each respective department, as well as see demonstration and use of department-specific items. Once the review of these 4 vendors were complete, there was a consensus among the group in which 2 vendors would be welcomed back for further demonstration and proposal and services. At the conclusion of this second meeting, all team members had a consensus in first choice, with that vendor being Revise. Revise provided a robust presentation and services and was the most knowledgeable in staff questions between the 2 vendors in the second round. Additionally, Revise's service proposal came under our allotted budget amount for the first year total of $17,700 and annual maintenance of $3,900 for subsequent years. Thomas Jean, the project proposal manager of Revise, is present today to provide a brief presentation on staff requested highlights of their services including but not limited to responsive web design, allowing for a more easily navigated site for residents, which will include page templates and interpage design and layout, making the staff backline maintenance much more comprehensive, content migration of old website material, hosted services and analytics of site for use in future updates and maintenance of the site. So I can turn that presentation over to Thomas Jean, and he'll be able to walk you through some more detail in web design.
Thank you, Stevie, for the background on the nature of why we started this project and the process. Appreciate it and all the staff time that went into it. Welcome, Mr. Jean. If you'd like to make some presentation to the board, we'd be happy to listen.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for having me. My name is Thomas Jean. I am with Revise. We're out of Troy, Michigan. And
You Cowboy fan?
oh no. Well, we can get into that, but quick answer is no. A little bit about us. As I mentioned, we're headquartered in Troy, Michigan. All we do is build websites for government. We've been doing it for over 20 years, and a few things we do really well. One is our content management system. That's the tool that the staff here would use to edit and update the site. We update that system about 4 times a year, so it's always getting better. We're improving upon it, making it easier, prettier, that sort of thing. Also, during the project, we'll do 100% custom design from scratch, so it won't be a template, it won't be a copy of another website, it'll be designed exclusively for you by our very talented team of designers. And then also during the project, we'll do a full content audit and re-architecture of the content of the current site. So rather than simply copying and pasting it over as is, with you, we'll develop an easier, what we call site map, so that folks can find what they're looking for, ideally a lot more easily and quickly than they can today. In terms of our client base, we've now launched about 3,000 websites nationwide. All of them are cities, counties, towns, and villages, just like yourself. Here are some of our cities. Next slide, some of our counties. And then other than the state of Michigan, I believe Illinois is probably number 2 in terms of the total number of clients that we have. Park Ridge, Lake Forest, Galesburg, Glencoe, Highland Park, so we're all over the place. Next. Now also with us, as long as you're with us, you do get tech support, and our tech support's a little bit different. First off, when anyone calls in for tech support, you should expect that we know you by name, or that we learn it very quickly. Also, the people that you speak with on our team, they are developers themselves. So the advantage of that is that the person that the staff is talking to is actually the person fixing whatever issue it is that might have come up. On top of that, we have a 24-hour customer support portal. We have support@revise.com. We have an online help center, and then we also do retraining for free anytime as long as you're with us. So if we could get into some of those URLs. So we're going to show you some live sites here and a few things that we do. If we could go to the next one, I believe. Okay, so during the process, we will actually, if you want to, we'll allow you to look through our previous design work, and we will actually let you pick the person at Revise that will design your website. So that gives you assurance, number one, that that person is talented, which when it comes to web design, talent really matters above all else. And then you're also going to know that they're experienced. You do not want someone designing your site that just started last week. You want someone that really knows what they're doing and has a full kind of portfolio for you to look through. And if we can go to the next one here. Go to the next one, please. So this is one we worked on for County, Colorado. It's actually still in development, but if we could scroll down to the very bottom. What we'll do is we'll provide an initial design for you. It'll be a home page, interior pages, different looks of what the menu might look like. You will get to review that. Click on it, one of those. There we go. It might take a second to load because it's pretty image heavy, but so you'll get to review it, and you'll get to come back to us with as many changes as you want made. Could be color, could be style. You could scroll down and say you don't like those icons there. You could go a little bit farther and say that you want to get rid of that sheep on the far left. Now, you'd be a monster for saying that, but you could. So anything you want to change, we just ask you to put it into a single list. We would review it, and then we would come back to you with a revision to the mock-up. And we actually do give you unlimited revisions. So we give you a guarantee. Average is probably about 3 to 4. The record is 20. That is not a record we will try to beat. Otherwise, it will go much longer than anyone wants it to go. So, but we just want to make sure that you're completely happy with that design Once you approve the design, we code it out, we add in our content management system and all the features that are included. We build out all of the pages of the website for you, and then we do training. Training is unlimited as long as you're with us for as many people as need it, whether it's someone that's new or someone that didn't pay attention during the initial training, which is rare, but it does happen. So we'll go to that one there. So this is the city of St. Petersburg, Florida. Overall, I just think this is one of the best websites in America. It's got a lot of the features on it and in it that you will have in your site, some of which you might not want. But as we scroll down a little bit, we've got some icons there. After that, we've got news and events. Each of these news items can have images, and each of those can push out to social media for you automatically, so you don't have to do double data entry. There's a life-size mayor right there. We can also do a social feed, so we're pulling in their Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook all into the website automatically, so again, you don't have to do double data entry for things like that. Next up, just a few other quick features. This is what we call e-notified. Essentially allows folks to sign up for text messages and emails, whether it's a new agenda that gets posted or it's just an update or an emergency alert that you want to send out to folks that have signed up. And it's easy for them to opt in and opt out. They don't have to have a username or anything like that. It's very low friction, as we say. And then next up here, some of the things you should expect with us is we're constantly upgrading and updating the features that are included. So 3 years from now, your website's not going to feel 3 years old or older. First off, we do give you a redesign for free in year 4. You can use it anytime in year 4 or after, but we're still updating things all the way along the way. So if we scroll down a little bit more to the calendar and we click View All Events, scroll a little bit farther. This is an example of something we just updated. In it, you can have as many sub-calendars as you want. All of those calendars can be color-coded. You get to pick the color, and it's also searchable. So if you've got 80 events per month, people don't have to think about or find what day it's on. They can simply search, and it'll come right up. Any of these events, any of these filtered calendars can be added to your own calendar by clicking Export. And then if you click on any individual event, pick one at random. Frankly, they just look prettier than a lot of events calendars out there today. You've got a date and time, you've got a flyer there, even an interactive map of where that event is located. And then final thing here, final tab, if we could, the top, there we go. Different departments are gonna have different needs, so we will build something for each of those departments' needs. A lot of times that comes down to what we call a microsite. Usually that's for parks, police, fire, elected officials sometimes, special events. And the intent here is really just to kind of expand the footprint of certain departments a little bit to they have what they need. It's not appropriate really for every department, but we kind of pick and choose based on the goals of the project, which department kind of needs which. In this case, instead of a block or a wall of text that no one's gonna read, this is much more visually pleasing. People can see things and easily find what they're looking for. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop there. I could talk for a couple hours, but you might kick me out by then. So I'll go ahead and stop and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Could you explain the e-notify? Is that just when there's updates to a particular page a user's looked at? I mean, we have other notification systems that residents can sign up for emergency calls and things, but is that, so that's specifically if a page on the website they look at changes?
It can be both. So it can be page or topic based.
Okay.
And also if someone signs up for a page, you can just send them a message outside of an update to the page. So it can be kind of topic specific too.
Okay.
But any of your third-party systems that you have, we'll make sure they tie in effectively, and sometimes that means like not using something that we have, so that may be the case here.
Okay.
But we'll work with the team to determine what's
Obviously, staff knows what we have already and what works, and I mean, everything with the ClickFix integration and Everbridge and things that we have already, I mean, how that, but I mean, you know, some people come to the website for very specific things, and if they can be notified there's changes, that seems like a very valuable feature. What's the timetable for this project?
Sure. Typical timeline is about 4 to 5 months. We can cut that down, and they can go longer than that. For example, the 20 revisions I mentioned earlier, that was about a year, so we're going to try to avoid that. But 4 to 5 months, and we can speed it up if needed.
Questions or comments from the board?
I have several. The unlimited revisions, is that just for the initial design? Is that what you mean?
It is for the initial design. Now, we do have a full beta testing period where we don't have a hard limit on the functional revisions that you have later on.
Okay.
It's just kind of case by case based in that.
But the functional revisions, so if they in year two, they're like, we want to be able to do this, that revision is like a planned project at that point. That's not a,
It depends on what that specific thing is. Usually, I always tell folks 95% of what you request functionally we'll be able to do, no problem. The other 5%, either we can't do it, it's a bad idea, or we can't do it in a time frame that's reasonable. And either way, whatever the case may be, I would let you know why and try to find some alternative for that.
and where is this website going to be housed?
So we got multiple environments. Likely yours will be on the AWS GovCloud, so Amazon GovCloud. It's a specific portion of their hosting environment that's set up specifically for government.
Awesome. So AWS, I'm very familiar with AWS, so that actually eliminates like 3 of my questions
Okay.
here. So that's good though. Therefore, the traffic's going to increase. They can increase. You're going to monitor the traffic, so if there's a need for increase of processors, some kind of memory, that'll just ride up and down as necessary.
Correct. And if it's a unplanned spike in activity, that usually means it could be some type of attack. We can automatically shut that down. We can get alerted if that happens. So absolutely.
Okay. So since it's in AWS, is Amazon going to be in charge of the maintenance schedule, the patch maintenances, security maintenance of those, or are you in charge of that?
It's a
part?
little bit of both.
Okay.
They do most of it, but there's things that are like optional that we can decide to do based on security or speed concerns. So mostly them, but we guarantee it to you as well.
So your AWS setup though, is it solely housed just for yours? It's not shared?
It's not shared. It's
It's not
just
shared,
for our
okay.
clients only. Yep.
Okay, awesome. That's good news. And then, yeah, that did actually kill half of my questions, the AWS. The last one is, when they want to do revisions or they want to do changes, the village does, they will see it in a UAT environment first, or are they going to,
They will. So we have it.
it'll be like a duplicate to the prod? and
Right,
then
we
they'll
actually
see-
have a testing environment basically that's hosted in a separate area where they make all their changes, and then they can preview them and play with them until they like it, and then they can push it live.
Okay, and then my last question, actually, for your content management system, that's how the village staff is going to be able to add or change content in the website. How would they access? Is it a two-factor authentication? Is it just a login? How is that going to function?
It's up to you. It is a login, and then we can, on top of that, put in two-factor authentication. Some of our clients don't like that. We recommend it, but it's kind of up to you. But typically, it is a login.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cote. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we've come a long way in our website. It's kind of lived its useful life. It does need to be updated. I appreciate the process the staff went through to bring forward this recommendation. I take it this is something that we'll need to vote on at the next meeting, or?
There is a contract. It is under our procurement amount.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so we don't need to take formal action because it's within the procurement amount under the statute, so it's under the village manager's authority, but I know they're looking for a consensus to support the process and recommendation they've gone through. Is there a consensus from the board to support the staff's recommendation?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. We look forward to working with you. We look forward to seeing the finished product and working with you as we modify it to go forward, but appreciate the presentation tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, the last item we have up under regular business is a approval of an estimated 2022 tax levy as required under the Truth in Taxation Act. We had a committee memo explaining this, but I know Doug wants to add a little explain. No, we would like to have, we always like to see you, Doug.
I know the Bears game is starting. I'm not a big fan, but I can go forever. Okay, so annually, the village is required to provide an estimate of its tax levy. This would be for the tax levy, the 2022 tax levy. We are in the process of trying to finalize the 2021 levy. which the county is going to notify us probably the first or second week of November. They'll have extended the 2021 levy, and then at that point in time, we can really shore up these numbers and finalize them. So the numbers we're looking at on page 27 of 30 on your board packet for the Committee of the Whole, this is where I'm going to be giving you most of the information from. I did not supply a PowerPoint or a slide for the visual, and I do apologize for that. So the estimated levy for the village that we're planning on doing for the total levy for the village is $11,968,000. From that number, we base what we're going to do our 2022 levy. The state of Illinois, because we're non-home rule, we're under the Property Tax Extension Limitation Act, which means we can increase our tax levy by 5% or the CPI, whichever is lower. The lower of those two values this year is 5%, which is unusual. This is the first time it's happened in over 25 years, simply because of the way the economy is at. Our actual CPI as of, I guess I do it as of 21, would have been 7%. And we're expecting the same thing to occur in 2023. So the decision is we have the opportunity to raise our property tax levy within PTEL by 5%. That would generate an additional $548,000 under our estimates. And if you look at page number 27 of 30, that would be the third column over where it talks about the dollar difference. So that increase for the village levy only we're talking about here, not the library, but for the village levy only, we're estimating, and this would be based on a 6% increase, I apologize, in order to capture the new growth as we always have done in the past. I'm estimating it to be an overall 6% increase in those taxes that are covered under PTEL. So that would be the maximum that we could do, would be $548,479. To put it simply, I guess, the overall rate that we're looking at, the overall proposed levy that we're looking at is $12,516,000, and that's an increase of $548,000 over the estimated 2021 levy for a total increase on all levies of the village of 4.58%. Now, the PTEL, this is where it gets a little confusing for me, is the PTEL is the Property Tax Limitation Act, and we're allowed to increase those levies up to 5%. I'm suggesting that we increase that levy by 6% in order to capture any new growth that might be out there. As we've discussed in the past, we don't want to leave anything on the table if we can avoid doing that, because once you lose it, and you don't get it back under PTEL. So we have 5 levies that are covered under PTEL, and that's the general corporate, the police protection, the fire protection, and the 2 pension funds. Those are all covered under PTEL. The aggregate increase of those 5 levies is at 6%. That's what I'm suggesting, is a 6% increase on those 5 levies. The other levies, the debt service levies, and this other portion of fire pension levy that's not covered under the tax cap, are what decrease the amount of our total levy from the 6% that I just talked about down to the 4.58%. So if the county were to accept our extension or our request, then our total levy overall would be 4.58%. However, our levies under the tax cap would still be at 6%. Does that make any sense? I'm sorry about that. I know it's confusing, but because we're dealing with 2 different things here. We're dealing with the overall levy, because there are some levies that the village has, particularly the debt service levies, that aren't covered under the tax cap, and 5 of which are. The important thing we need to understand is that the levies that are covered under the tax cap, you want, from a fiscal point of view, not from a political point of view, but probably from a fiscal point of view, you want to make sure that you capture every dollar that you can get. And I'm suggesting that we take those 5 levies and increase them by a total of 6%. And that way we can move forward to the next year's tax levy and not lose anything from this levy.
But if we have a cap at 5%, how, I don't,
So you want to always go a little bit above your tax cap simply because there's new growth out there.
you're talking simply for new growth.
Simply for new growth.
New growth
capture-
would be for
right.
6%.
Exactly.
but-
So if I'm a resident there,
Yeah.
the most I'll ever get taxed under PTEL, depending on how my assessed valuation works out over there, would be the 5%.
Right, and
But
only
our
the new growth,
levy-
you're talking 6%.
Yeah, so when residents see that number, they'll be like, oh boy, they want to raise it 6%. Well, we're raising it 6% to cover that extra growth. Like, for instance, there's a development on Grand, we're trying to capture that growth, because that just came on the tax rolls this year. So by levying that additional 1%, we're hoping to make sure that we don't lose that, or as they say, leave it on the table. Because once it's left on the table, it is left on the table, and you can't capture it anymore.
As Doug pointed, there's a lot of confusion about that when you know, there's just a heading of how much the increase is going to be. I mean, we've worked hard to increase our EAV and get new growth in the village, but if we don't take this extra step, we don't receive the benefit of the official property taxes, and then, you know, then the burden falls on the existing properties to, you know, fund all the operations that we have. I mean, our levy is obviously the largest part of our income and source of funding, so we have to, you know, it goes hand in hand with working to try and improve the AV and get the growth, that we have to take this extra step. And, you know, with budget talks coming up, I mean, we've had this CPI, as Doug indicated, this is the first time in 25 years that the CPI has been this high and that we're at this level. I mean, that's going to factor into other expenses that the village has. I mean, we have bargaining units coming up for negotiations, and the increased CPI could result in additional expenses for the village. So, you know, it allows us to levy more, but it's also going to cause us to have additional expenditures. So I think that's why we have to look at this very carefully. Am I correct there, Doug? I mean,
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
So what did we levy last year?
I'm sorry?
What did we levy last year?
Well, our total levy last year, let me see if I can find it here. For the 2021 levy, we levied, for the village, we levied $12,066,000. So $12 million basically is what we levied for 2021. Now, what we levied is not what we'll probably end up getting, because once the county extends that 2021 levy, we'll probably fall in below that. You know what I'm
But what
saying?
percentage was that last year that we were?
Oh, that increase from last year? It was 2%, 2.3% or 2.1%, I believe, something to that effect.
Okay, so I know we're going from 2.1 to 5.
Right.
I know the CPI is giving us the flexibility to do that, but, I mean, that's doubling the levy. That's a
Right.
considerable increase where we're,
well, it's not doubling the levy, it's doubling the amount of the percentage increase.
that's what I mean, doubling the percentage increase over last year.
Right.
Are our costs commensurate with that increase? I mean, I know the CPI is at 7%. I know certain bargaining units are tied to CPI. I mean, is the dollar amount, that increase, justified by the anticipated expenditure that is directly tied to CPI?
That is something we're going to have to discuss at the budget time. This levy does not have to be approved until after, well, the first meeting in December, okay? This is a conversation we need to have at the budget workshop, because we have a lot of expenses outside of salaries that maybe we'd like to look at. And in order to fund those expenditures, we would need to possibly increase the tax levy up to that amount.
But that's a good question. We're seeing it on every capital project, both inside this building and infrastructure-wise. Every project is coming in over budget. And what we're being told by our village engineer and other experts is that don't expect these prices to come down. So whether we're paying for gas, all of our commodity prices are going up. We will talk about this at the budget workshop. So just like with every industry, and whether it be food, whether it be, we're a people-based organization, salaries are going up, and we are seeing the impacts of the CPI in just about everything we do.
And the danger is, if you don't keep pace this year, you lose it, because the next year you're capped at a percentage increase from the previous year. So if you don't capture the full amount to cover a CPI increase this year, as Doug indicated, the possible CPI factor that we'll be using for next year, I mean, CPI has been as high as 9% at some point. We may be facing a 7% total increase in CPI for next year. And if we take the route of just saying, well, that's too big of an increase for this year, let's cut it in half, and next year we're that far behind. I think it will come out to play in the budget talks, but we have to realize that once we don't capture this, we lose the future increases to keep pace with the economy. Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, so this was more for presentation purposes tonight, and then is there anything else that you wanted to add, Doug?
So, I mean, the resolution does need to be approved at the next meeting, but this is, like I said, it's only an estimate of where we plan to, where we'd like to go. It's a roadmap to where our tax levy is going to be approved finally in December. The steps you need to take to get there is the first thing you need to do is pass this estimate, which would determine if we're going to have a public hearing or not, and of course, we always have the public hearing.
Right.
But again, the board can always decide, should they make that decision during our budget discussions, if they would prefer to decrease that, increase, that's fine, you know, it's up to where we're at financially.
So this is the annual process we go through. We'll pass a resolution in the next meeting with this estimated tax levy. It'll be published, notice of a public hearing and chance for public comment, and then in the meantime, we'll be having the budget workshop and other things that'll come into play, and we can make the ultimate decision before the first meeting in December.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have our public hearing for the tax levy will be at our December meeting prior to the adoption of the levy.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I did have another question. So Doug, the financial impact you have is here at 12.3 million. Is what the levy would amount to at the 5.
Right, 12.3 million, exactly.
And last year, we were at what was the total?
So the board approved amount last year was 11,775,000, and that does include the libraries. When you're making comparison with the 12.3 million, you're also comparing it to the 11.7 total levy with the library. So that total increase is 748,000.
Okay, so the increase from just the village portion between last year and this year would be,
The 548,000.
500.
Just the village portion. 548,000 is what we're looking at, which is a 4.58% increase.
okay. And, I mean, just an idea what that translates to for the average resident?
So I did a calculation, and it's, again, this is all estimates right now because the county hasn't done the extension for the 2021 levy. I mean, we're just working with estimates here, but my estimate is if you were to increase this, it would cost about $100 per $250,000 household per year. That's what I'm coming up with. So it's like $20 for every percentage increase is what I have.
Okay, so the average
So-
home's $300,000, say in Brookfield, single-family home.
Right, so it'd be a little bit more than
Be-
$100, probably $120, $130 increase.
I'm
Now,
sorry, I think it's
that's just on
$100.
the village side. I also need to make sure that you understand that the other taxing bodies within Brookfield will probably also be looking at a 5%, particularly the school districts. LT on the south side has already stated that they're looking at a 5% plus increase. So, I mean, it's just, the increase overall in the levy, we are a small portion of that increase. So, and I know that generally speaking, the village might bear the brunt of a lot of those complaints. But our overall levy increase, should it get approved at these levels that I'm looking at for the village only, is 4.58% because our debt service levy is steady or going down. Because we have those three debt services outstanding right now,
Okay,
and they're decreasing.
all right, so an average house, say $250,000 house value, the average increase would be
So
$100 per 100,000, is that what you said, or?
No, 250,000.
Oh, $100 per
I
250.
calculated on a $250,000 market value home is $100 for the 5% increase.
Okay,
Okay.
I just want to make that clear,
Yeah.
because it seems like when you're jumping from 2% to 5.5%, people think they're property taxes, and it's $125, $150 increase over the previous year.
Well, it's the village's portion is going, but as Doug has indicated, the other taxing bodies, if they follow a similar
Well, right,
tax, I mean,
but the portion that we're responsible for,
correct.
then we just give them Mike's number.
What's that? Yeah. It's all on the north side, right?
Okay, no, just thank you for that additional clarification.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, let's put the resolution up for the first meeting in November. Thank you, Doug.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Doug.
Thank you.
Okay, once again, I'll open up the meeting to public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to make any comments at this point in time? Yes, Alan, if you please come up to the microphone.
Alan Goodcase, 8940 Shields. This is, I just have a comment in the light of the past discussions about rats in the neighborhood. I happen to have a camera aimed at the ground of my backyard, which is large, And I also have another camera aimed at the side yard. And I'm going to tell you what animals I see on those cameras. It's a lot of fun. I actually look at it every day. The cameras are sensitive because they have motion detection. Even a leaf will set them off. So I'm going to give you an order of abundance. Number one, above all others, is opossums. Now, by the way, I'm down by Ellard Park, across from Ellard Park. Number two, rabbits. Number three, cats. Raccoons. One limping fox. And I see it all the time, and it limps. And I saw one skunk. And that's it.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it.
That's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Anyone else in the public want to make a comment? Is there any member of Boy Scout Troop 90 that would like to make a comment that there's a pancake breakfast on Saturday, November 19th, and there might be tickets available? Anybody? Bueller? Okay. If anyone's interested, I hear there's a pancake breakfast. Mr. Davey Leclerc, would you like to address your father and the village board? So you guys got a pancake breakfast coming up, huh?
Yeah.
I heard you were out at the farmer's market. That was very good advertising. They were out at this week's farmer's market cooking pancakes, and the smell is the best advertising, so. So Saturday, November 19th at Brook Park School,
Yes.
7 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody that has any tickets that are available for sale?
I might.
Okay. Are you available after the board meeting if anyone's interested?
I am.
And
How
what
much
do you?
are those?
How much? Yes, how much are they?
They're $6 a ticket.
And what does
Very
that cover?
affordable. Very affordable.
And they're all-you-can-eat pancakes, too.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
about sausage?
That's
Sausage too.
And there will also be a bake sale, too.
a very good world-famous bake sale. And I know this supports a lot of things you do and helps you go to summer camp and do other things. So Boy Scout Troop 90 is a great troop, a great asset to our community. They were helping out at Meet the Creek and other events. So I just glad Davey's here tonight. And if anyone's interested in buying tickets, you could see him after the meeting. Okay? Thank you for being here tonight. Any other public comment? Is there any need for executive session tonight? Okay, so it's 7:38. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by trustee Cote, second by trustee Kaluzny. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Conroy?
Aye.
Trustee Leclerc?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.